The Valari Dominion had never lost a war. For 300 years, Queen Elvara ruled her empire with a simple philosophy: offer peace first, and if they refuse, destroy them completely. Her silver skin glowed under the light of twin suns as she sat on her crystal throne. Her 4 purple eyes watched everything. Her 4 arms rested on the armrests of her ancient seat. She was beautiful in a terrifying way, like a storm made of starlight. 17 star systems belonged to her now. Dozens of species bowed to her rule. The Valari were taller than humans, stronger than humans, and their technology was centuries ahead. When they first discovered Earth, they expected another easy conquest. They expected humans to surrender within weeks. They were wrong. The war lasted 11 years. 11 brutal, bloody years that cost both sides more than either wanted to admit. The Valari had better ships, better weapons, better everything. But humans refused to die quietly. They fought with a madness that confused the Valari commanders. They sacrificed themselves in ways that made no logical sense. They kept coming, wave after wave, even when victory seemed impossible. Queen Elvara had never seen anything like it. By the 10th year, her advisors brought her troubling reports. The Valari economy was suffering. Young soldiers were dying faster than new ones could be trained. The conquered species were watching, waiting, hoping that Earth might somehow win and inspire their own rebellions. Elvara was many things, but she was not stupid. She knew when a war could not be won without destroying everything she had built. So she proposed peace. The humans agreed, but they did not trust easily. They demanded something old, something from Valari tradition that Elvara herself had almost forgotten: a peace bonding. One person from each side would live with the other as a permanent symbol of the treaty, a living promise that neither side would attack again. The Valari sent one of their minor nobles to Earth. The humans sent a man to Ethon Prime. His name was Kang Do-yun. Elvara stood on her observation deck when his ship arrived. It was not a diplomatic vessel decorated with flags and ceremony. It was a simple cargo shuttle, gray and unremarkable. She frowned at this. "Perhaps they mock us," said Commander Thiessen, her most trusted military advisor. He stood beside her, his tall form rigid with disapproval. His scales were darker than hers, almost black, and his 4 eyes burned with suspicion. "They send us their garbage instead of their treasure." "Perhaps," Elvara murmured. "Or perhaps they are simply practical." The shuttle landed in the palace courtyard. The honor guard stood ready, 20 of her finest warriors in ceremonial armor, their plasma spears gleaming. They expected someone impressive. They expected a general, a politician, or at least someone who looked important. The man who stepped off the shuttle was none of these things. Kang Do-hyun was average height for a human. He had a lean build, neither muscular nor weak. His dark hair was cut short, and there were streaks of gray near his temples, though his face looked young, maybe 30 years old by human counting. He wore simple gray clothes with no medals, no insignia, nothing to show his rank or importance. He carried one small bag over his shoulder. The honor guard looked at each other in confusion. Thiessen made a sound of disgust. But Elvara noticed something else. She noticed how Do-hyun's eyes moved as he walked down the shuttle ramp. They moved quickly, precisely, taking in every guard position, every weapon, every possible exit. He did this so naturally that someone who was not watching closely would never see it. He stopped before the honor guard and bowed deeply in the proper Valari style. "I am Kang Do-hyun," he said in perfect Valari language. "I thank Queen Elvara for accepting me into her home. I hope to serve the peace between our peoples." His pronunciation was flawless. He had clearly studied their language carefully. Elvara noted this too. She did not go down to greet him herself. That would be beneath her station. Instead, She sent her youngest daughter, Princess Neelith, to escort him to his quarters. Neelith was curious and friendly, the opposite of her serious older sisters. If anyone could get the human to reveal his true nature, it would be her. The princess found Dohin standing in the courtyard, looking up at the twin sons with an expression she could not read. "Human," she called out, not unkindly. "I am Princess Neelith. I will show you to your rooms." Dohin turned and bowed again. "Thank you, Highness. Your sons are beautiful. On Earth, we have only one." Neelith tilted her head. Humans were strange creatures. "You find beauty in sons?" "I find beauty in many things," he said simply. "It helps. Helps with what?" He paused, and for just a moment, something flickered behind his calm brown eyes. Something heavy and tired. Then it was gone, and he smiled politely. "Helps pass the time, Highness." Neelith led him through the palace halls. The Crystal Palace of Ethon Prime was one of the wonders of the galaxy, walls of living crystal that sang softly when touched, floors that glowed with inner light, ceilings so high they seemed to touch the sky. Most visitors gasped in amazement. Dohin simply walked quietly, observing everything, commenting on nothing. "You are not impressed?" Neelith asked, slightly offended. "I am very impressed," he replied. "But I have learned not to let my face show everything I feel. It is a human habit. I apologize if it seems rude." She studied him as they walked. He moved strangely for someone who looked so ordinary. His steps were perfectly silent. His balance was perfect, even when the floor sloped unexpectedly. Twice, servants came around corners suddenly, and he had already shifted his position before they appeared, as if he knew they were coming. "You move like a hunter," she observed. "I was a soldier once," he admitted. "Old habits. Just a soldier? Not an officer? I prefer not to lead. Leading means making decisions that cost lives. I would rather follow orders and bear only my own choices." Neelith did not understand this philosophy, but she found it interesting. Most humans she had seen during the war were loud, aggressive, full of bravado. This one was like still water calm on the surface, impossible to see beneath. She left him at his quarters, a modest suite overlooking the eastern gardens. He thanked her politely and closed the door. That night, Ilvara summoned Thiessen to her private chambers. "What have you learned about him?" she demanded. Thiessen brought up a holographic display. "Very little, my queen. His military records are sealed at the highest level. We know he served in their fleet, but the details are classified beyond anything we can access. His personal history is similarly hidden. He appears to have no family, no close friends, no connections that we can use as leverage." "A ghost," Ilvara murmured. "A nobody," Thiessen corrected. "I believe the humans are insulting us by sending someone so unimportant." But Ilvara was not so sure. She had ruled for 3 centuries by trusting her instincts, and her instincts were screaming at her now. "Keep watching him," she ordered. "I want to know everything he does, everyone he speaks to, every book he reads. Something about this man is wrong." Thiessen bowed and left. Ilvara walked to her window and looked out at the night sky. Somewhere out there, beyond her conquered stars, Earth waited. They had sent her one small human to seal a peace treaty. It seemed like such a simple thing. So why did she feel like she was standing at the edge of something vast and dangerous? In his quarters, Kang Go-hin sat alone in the darkness. He did not turn on the lights. He did not unpack his bag. He simply sat by the window and watched the unfamiliar stars. In his mind, numbers scrolled endlessly, calculations, probabilities, tactical assessments. He counted the guards he had seen. He measured the distances between checkpoints. He estimated how long it would take to reach the palace's main power core if he needed to. He did not want to think these thoughts. but he could not stop them. This was what he had been made to do. Somewhere deep in his chest, in the place where his heart used to feel normal, there was only a cold machine humming quietly. Waiting, Kang Do-hyun closed his eyes and tried to remember what it felt like to be human. He could not. 3 months passed on Etham Prime. The Valari court had formed their opinions about the human ambassador. He was polite. He was quiet. He was so forgettable that sometimes guards walked past him without noticing he was there. He attended state dinners and stood in corners. He visited the royal library and read books about Valari farming. He spent hours in the palace gardens, studying the strange alien flowers that grew there. Princess Neelith started calling him the Shadow because of how quietly he moved through the palace halls. Commander Thiessen delivered his monthly report to Queen Elvira with visible frustration. "He does nothing of importance," Thiessen said, his forearms crossed in annoyance. "He wakes early, exercises alone in his room, eats simple meals, and spends his days reading or walking. He asks questions about soil quality and crop rotation. He seems genuinely interested in how we grow our food." Elvira sat on her throne, listening carefully. Has he attempted to access any restricted areas? Never. He stays exactly where he is allowed to be. He has made no suspicious contacts, sent no secret messages, and shown no interest in our military technology. Honestly, my queen, I believe Earth sent us a farmer by mistake, or they sent us exactly what they wanted us to see. Thiessen hesitated. What do you mean? I mean that a man who tries very hard to look harmless is often the most dangerous man in the room. Elvira stood and walked to her window. Continue watching him. I will observe him myself. For the next several weeks, Elvira made it her personal mission to understand the human. She was subtle about it. A queen does not follow people around like a common spy. But she arranged to be in places where he would be. She asked her daughters to report on their conversations with him. She studied him like she would study an enemy before a battle. She noticed things that Thiessen missed. Do-hyun walked through crowded rooms without ever bumping into anyone, even when he was not looking where he was going. His body simply knew where every obstacle was. When weapons were nearby, a guard's spear, a ceremonial sword on the wall, his shoulders tensed slightly, not with fear, but with awareness. He memorized names instantly. He remembered every face he had ever seen in the palace. He learned the Valari language so quickly that he was now correcting minor grammatical errors made by native speakers. These were not the habits of a farmer. One evening, Elvira found him alone in the observatory of stars. This was a sacred place for her people, a vast domed room where holographic maps of the entire Valari dominion floated in the darkness like living constellations. Few were allowed here without special permission, but Do-hyun had somehow gotten access. She entered silently, but he turned to face her before she took 3 steps. Of course he did. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing low. "I apologize if I have entered a forbidden place." The door was open, and I could not resist. "You have not broken any rules," she said. "But I am curious why a man so interested in agriculture would want to look at star maps." Do-hyun turned back to the holographic display. Hundreds of star systems glowed around him, each one representing a world under Valari control. Some of them had once belonged to other species before the Dominion conquered them. "I was counting," he said. "Counting stars? Counting lives." His voice was soft, almost sad. "Each light is a world. Each world holds millions, billions of thinking creatures. They wake up, eat breakfast, love their families, worry about small things. They do not think about empires or wars or treaties. They just live their little lives and hope tomorrow will be good." Elvira moved closer, interested despite herself. "You speak strangely for a soldier." "I stopped being a soldier a long time ago, Your Majesty. Now I am just a man trying to understand the weight of things." The weight of what things? He was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy. Choices, actions, consequences. Every decision we make ripples outward, touching lives we will never see. Sometimes I wonder if the people in power truly understand this. If they feel the weight of every life that hangs on their words. Ilvara found herself strangely moved. She had ruled for 3 centuries. She had ordered armies to burn cities. She had signed treaties that decided the fate of billions. But she had never thought about it quite this way before. "You carry a great burden," she observed. "I can see it in your eyes." Dahyun smiled, but it was a sad smile. "We all carry burdens, Your Majesty. Some of us are just better at hiding them." He bowed again and excused himself, leaving her alone in the observatory. That night, Ilvara could not sleep. She kept thinking about the human's words. There was something broken inside him, she was certain of it now. Something heavy and dark that he kept locked away behind his calm face. She had seen similar looks in soldiers who had experienced terrible things during war. But Dahyun's eyes were different. His pain seemed deeper, older, like he was carrying the grief of thousands. Meanwhile, Dahyun walked through the midnight gardens. The alien flowers glowed softly in the darkness, their bioluminescent petals creating rivers of blue and purple light. He had learned that they were called moon tears, and they only bloomed at night. He stopped beside a small fountain and sat on a stone bench. In his mind, the calculations never stopped. He had mapped the entire palace by now, every corridor, every guard station, every power conduit and communication hub. He knew where the queen slept. He knew where her daughters spent their time. He knew the weaknesses in their security systems and the frequencies their military used for fleet communications. He did not want to know these things, but his brain would not let him stop. This was his curse. The modifications they had made to him during the architect program could not be turned off. He was always watching, always analyzing, always preparing for violence that he desperately hoped would never come. "You look troubled." Dahyun did not jump. He had heard Princess Neelith approaching from 50 meters away. She was trying to be sneaky, but her robes rustled against the gravel path. "Highness," he said, standing and bowing. "It is late for a princess to be wandering alone. I could say the same about human ambassadors." She sat on the bench and patted the space beside her. "Sit. I am not here to interrogate you." He hesitated, then sat. "Why are you here?" "Because you interest me." Neelith looked at him with her 4 purple eyes. She was the youngest of the royal daughters, barely a century old by Valari standards, practically a teenager. She had her mother's sharp intelligence, but less of her cold caution. "Everyone else thinks you are boring. My mother thinks you are hiding something. My sister Yesera thinks you are a spy. But I think you are just lonely." Dahyun said nothing. "I am right? Yes? You have been here 3 months, and you have not made a single friend. You do not laugh. You do not play. You walk around like a ghost, watching everything, touching nothing. That is not the behavior of a happy man. I am here to maintain peace between our peoples, Highness. I am not here to be happy. That is sad." Neelith pulled something from her pocket, a small wooden box. "Do you know what this is?" Dahyun examined it. "A game board?" "Vareth. It is an ancient Valari strategy game. Very difficult. My mother says you learn more about a person from how they play Vareth than from 100 conversations." She opened the box and began setting up the pieces. "Play with me. I do not know the rules. I will teach you." They played until dawn. Dahyun lost the first game quickly. The rules were complex, and Neelith was skilled. But he learned faster than she expected. By the 3rd game, he was giving her real competition. By the 5th game, she was frowning in concentration. "You learn too fast," she complained. "I have a good memory." "No, it is more than that. You see patterns that others miss. You predict my moves before I make them." She looked at him with new respect. "You would have made a great Valari strategist." "I was a strategist once," Dahyun admitted. "A long time ago. For the human military?" "For a special branch of it, yes." Mila sensed that he would say no more, so she did not push. Instead, she packed up the game and stood. "Same time tomorrow night?" she asked. Do-hyun hesitated. He knew he should refuse. Getting close to the royal family was dangerous, not for him, but for them. If they knew what he really was, they would not want him anywhere near them. But looking at Neelith's hopeful face, he could not bring himself to say no. "Same time tomorrow," he agreed. And for the first time in years, he almost felt like a normal person. The Festival of Ascension was the most important celebration in the Valari calendar. Once every 20 years, all 7 of Queen Ilvara's daughters returned to Ethon Prime to honor the day their mother first took the throne. For 1 week, the Crystal Palace filled with music, feasting, and dancing. Nobles from across the Dominion traveled for months to attend. It was also the first time in decades that the entire royal family was together in one place. Do-hyun understood the danger of this immediately. He had studied Valari history carefully. He knew that not all conquered species were happy under Ilvara's rule. He knew that some of them waited and watched and planned for moments exactly like this. He shared his concerns with Commander Thiessen, but the military advisor dismissed him with a wave of his 4 hands. "We have increased security tenfold," Thiessen said coldly. "Every entrance is guarded. Every guest has been investigated. The palace is the safest place in the galaxy right now. Your human paranoia is not needed." Do-hyun did not argue, but he did not sleep that night either. On the 3rd day of the festival, Princess Neelith found him in the Eastern Garden. They had made this their meeting place over the past months, a quiet spot where they could play Vareth and talk without the court watching. She had become something like a friend to him, though he was careful not to let himself think of her that way. Friends were dangerous for people like him. Friends were weaknesses that enemies could exploit. "You look tired," Neelith observed as she set up the game board. "Did you stay up all night again?" "I had things on my mind." "You always have things on your mind. That is your problem." She moved her first piece. "You think too much. Sometimes you need to just exist and enjoy the moment." Enjoying moments is difficult when you are always calculating what might go wrong. "Nothing will go wrong today. The sun is shining, my sisters are home, and my mother is actually smiling for once." "Stop worrying." Do-hyun wished he could, but his modified brain would not let him. Even as they played, part of his mind was tracking the movement of guards in the distance, calculating response times, identifying the 3 fastest escape routes from their current position. Then the alarm started screaming. The sound cut through the peaceful afternoon like a blade. Do-hyun was on his feet before the first siren finished its first note. His eyes swept the garden, processing information faster than any normal human could manage. "What is happening?" Neelith stood, her 4 hands reaching for the small ceremonial knife at her belt. "Stay behind me." Do-hyun's voice changed. The warmth disappeared. The softness vanished. What remained was cold, precise, and absolutely certain. "Do not leave my side. Do not argue. Do not hesitate. Nod if you understand." Neelith nodded, too shocked to do anything else. 3 figures dropped from the garden walls. They were Koratha, reptilian species that the Valari had conquered 2 centuries ago. Once they had been proud warriors with their own empire. Now they were slaves and servants, forced to bow to Valari masters. Most of them had accepted their fate, but some had been planning revenge for generations. These three wore dark armor and carried plasma blades, weapons designed to cut through anything. Their yellow eyes burned with hatred as they landed in fighting stances. "The princess," one of them hissed. "Kill her and the human." They attacked. What happened next lasted 7 seconds. Neelith would remember every moment for the rest of her very long life. Dohyun moved. He did not move like a person. He moved like water, like wind, like something that had been engineered for a single terrible purpose. The first assassin swung his blade in a wide arc. Dohyun was not there. He had already slipped inside the attack, his hand striking the Korad's throat with surgical precision. The assassin crumpled. The second assassin adjusted, trying to flank him. Dohyun spun without looking, grabbing the incoming blade arm and twisting in a way that produced a horrible snapping sound. He used the falling body as a shield against the third assassin's thrust, then stepped over it and drove his palm upward into the final attacker's skull. 3 bodies hit the ground. Dohyun stood over them, breathing normally, his expression unchanged. He had not drawn a weapon. He had not even gotten blood on his simple gray clothes. He had simply erased 3 trained killers with his bare hands in less time than it takes to draw a breath. Neelith stared at him. Her knife was still in her hand, undrawn. She had not even had time to pull it out. "The throne room," Dohyun said. His voice was still cold, still mechanical. "Your mother and sisters. We need to move now." "How did you—" "Now, Highness, run." They ran. The palace was in chaos. Guards sprinted through hallways. Servants screamed and fled. Somewhere in the distance, plasma fire crackled. The Karth attack was not limited to the garden. This was a coordinated assault, carefully planned to strike when the entire royal family was vulnerable. Dohyun led Neelith through corridors she had never seen before, service passages, maintenance tunnels, routes that bypassed the main hallways entirely. He moved through the palace like he had lived there his entire life, not like someone who had arrived 6 months ago. "How do you know these paths?" she demanded as they ran. "I walked them at night. I memorized everything." "Keep moving." They reached the throne room through a side entrance. The scene inside made Neelith gasp. Queen Ilvara stood in the center of the room, surrounded by her personal guard. 3 of the guards were dead on the floor. The queen herself was wounded, a deep cut across one of her arms that dripped silver blood. But she was alive, and she was fighting. On the far side of the room, Princess Yazara, the eldest daughter, the heir to the throne, was cornered by 5 Karth assassins. The guards who should have protected her lay dead around her. She held a ceremonial sword, but she was a politician, not a warrior. She would not last long. Thiessen was shouting orders, trying to organize the remaining guards for a rescue. But they were too slow, too disorganized. By the time they crossed the room, Ysara would be dead. Dohyun did not wait for orders. He moved. Later, witnesses would struggle to describe what they saw. Some said he flew across the room. Others said he simply appeared among the assassins like a ghost. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. He ran faster than any human should be able to run, and he killed with an efficiency that made the trained Karth warriors look like children playing with sticks. 4 seconds. 5 bodies. The last assassin tried to flee. Dohyun caught him by the throat and held him against the wall, feet dangling off the ground. "How many more?" Dohyun's voice was calm, almost gentle. "How many more of you are in the palace?" The Korath spat at him. "You cannot stop us. The royal family will die today. The Dominion will burn." Dohyun studied him for a moment. Then he did something with his other hand, something too fast to follow, and the assassin's eyes went wide with pain. 8 more, the Korath gasped. 8 more in the eastern wing. Please stop." Dohyun released him. The assassin slumped to the floor, unconscious but alive. "Commander Thiessen," Do-hyun said, still in that cold, mechanical voice. "8 hostiles in the eastern wing. 3rd floor, near the Duchess's quarters. If you move now, you can intercept them." Thiessen stared at him. Everyone stared at him. Do-hyun stood among the bodies, completely still, his hands at his sides. There was blood on his fingers, now not his own. His face showed no emotion, no satisfaction, no horror. He looked like a machine that had completed its function and was waiting for the next command. Queen Ilvara stepped forward. Her wound was serious, but she ignored it. She walked through the carnage until she stood directly in front of the human. "What are you?" she whispered. Do-hyun blinked. Something flickered in his eyes, something human, something pained. The cold mask cracked for just a moment. "I am what my species makes when we have no other choice," he said quietly. "I am sorry you had to see this, Your Majesty. I truly hoped you never would." Then he turned and walked toward the eastern wing. "Wait," Ilvara called. "Where are you going?" "There are 8 more assassins. Your guards are too slow. If you want them captured alive, I suggest you send Thiessen to follow me." He paused at the doorway. "And please tend to your wound, Your Majesty. The bleeding is arterial. You have approximately 10 minutes before it becomes dangerous." He disappeared into the corridor. Neelith ran to her mother's side. Yesera was shaking, still holding her sword, staring at the dead assassins who had been about to kill her. "Mother," Neelith said, "what is he? What did the humans send us?" Ilvara looked at the blood on the floor. She looked at the bodies. She thought about the gentleman who spent his evenings playing board games with her youngest daughter. "I do not know," she admitted, "but I intend to find out." The Valari Intelligence Ministry worked through the night and into the next day. They used every resource available: spies, hackers, informants hidden within human space. They cracked encrypted files and bribed officials. They dug into military databases that were supposed to be impossible to access. By the following evening, Commander Thiessen had his answers. He stood before Queen Ilvara in her private chambers, his 4 hands shaking as he held the holographic display. The Queen sat in her chair, her wounded arm wrapped in healing bandages. Her face showed nothing, but her eyes burned with intensity. "Tell me everything," she commanded. Thiessen took a deep breath. The program was called Architect. It began during the first year of our war with Earth. The humans realized they could not match our technology or our numbers. They needed something else, something that could turn the tide. "Weapons," Ilvara said. "Living weapons." Thiessen activated the display. Images appeared: medical diagrams, neural maps, genetic sequences. They took their most gifted individuals and modified them. Neural implants that allowed direct interface with computer systems. Genetic enhancements for speed, strength, and reaction time. Combat programming written directly into their nervous systems. Ilvara leaned forward. "What does direct interface with computer systems mean?" "It means they can connect to any networked technology, wirelessly, with their minds." Thiessen paused, letting that sink in. A single architect, given sufficient access to a network, can override command systems. Navigation controls. Weapons platforms. They can turn an entire fleet's weapons against itself. The Queen was silent for a long moment. "How many architects exist?" 7 confirmed. Kang Do-hyun is designated Architect 3. Thiesen's voice trembled slightly. "During the Battle of Proxima Station, he infiltrated our command network through a captured communication relay. In 17 minutes, he caused 43 of our warships to fire on each other. 12,000 Valari soldiers died." Ilvara closed her eyes. 12,000. She remembered that battle. She remembered receiving the report. At the time, They had blamed it on a computer malfunction, a virus sabotaged by unknown means. They never imagined it was one man. One quiet, polite man who spent his evenings playing board games with her daughter. "There is more," Thiessen said reluctantly. His psychological profile. The humans kept detailed records of each architect's mental state. Kang Do-hyun showed significant resistance to his conditioning. He questioned orders. He expressed guilt over casualties. After the Battle of Proxima Station, he suffered what humans call a breakdown. He refused further combat assignments. There was discussion of decommissioning him, which, in architect terminology, means execution. But they did not execute him. No. Instead, when we proposed a peace bonding, he volunteered. According to intercepted communications, he specifically requested to be sent to us. He told his commanders he wanted to build something instead of destroying things. He said, Thiessen checked his notes. He said he wanted to pay back some of the debt he owed. Ilvara opened her eyes. He volunteered to live among the people he slaughtered. It appears so. Either he is insane or he is something I do not understand. She stood and walked to her window. Outside, the twin suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Where is he now? In his quarters. He has not left since the attack. He does not eat. He does not sleep. He simply sits by the window, staring at nothing. Summon him. I will speak with him myself. Thiessen hesitated. My queen, is that wise? He killed 13 Korath assassins with his bare hands. If he wanted to harm you, if he wanted to harm me, Commander, he has had 6 months of opportunities. I do not believe he is a threat. She paused, but station guards outside the door. Just in case. Do-hyun arrived 20 minutes later. He looked terrible. His eyes were red. His face was pale, and he moved like a man carrying an invisible weight. But he still bowed properly and waited for permission to speak. Ilvara dismissed her guards and gestured for him to sit. He remained standing. You murdered 12,000 of my people, she said. Yes, you disabled their ships and made them kill each other. Yes, and then you came here, to my home, to live among us. You played games with my daughter. You walked through my gardens. You ate at my table. Her voice rose. Did you think we would never find out? Did you think you could hide what you are forever? No. Do-hyun's voice was flat, exhausted. I knew you would discover the truth eventually. I hoped it would be later. I hoped I would have time to show you that I am more than what they made me. More than a weapon? More than a murderer. He finally looked up at her. His eyes were full of pain, real human pain. I remember every face, Your Majesty. When I connected to your fleet's network, I was inside their systems. I heard their communications. I heard them calling for help, calling for their families, praying to their gods. I felt them die. Not in some abstract way, I literally felt their terror and their pain through the neural link. Ilvara said nothing. After that battle, I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. I heard them. 12,000 voices asking me why. I told my commanders I could not do it anymore. They threatened to kill me. An architect who refuses to fight is too dangerous to let live. But then your peace proposal came, and I saw another option. You thought we would welcome you after what you did? I thought I could help. I thought that if I spent the rest of my life protecting Valari lives instead of taking them, maybe I could find some peace. He shook his head. I know it sounds foolish. I know nothing I do can bring back the people I killed. But I had to try. I had to believe that I could be something other than a weapon. Ilvara stepped closer. She was still angry. Part of her wanted to order his execution right there. But she had ruled for 3 centuries. She had learned to listen, even to enemies. Why did you save my daughters? She demanded. You could have let the assassins kill them. It would have weakened the Dominion. It would have served human interests. Because killing serves no one's interests. Dawn's voice cracked slightly. Because Neelith is kind and curious and deserves to see her grandchildren grow up. Because Yesara is brave and loyal and should not die at the hands of cowards. Because I am tired, so tired of watching people die. Tears were running down his face now. He did not wipe them away. I am not asking you to forgive what I am, he said. I am not asking you to trust me. I am only asking for the chance to prove that I can be different. That the monster they created can choose to be something else. Ilvara studied him for a long moment. She had seen many liars in her centuries of rule. She had learned to read faces, voices, body language. Everything about this man screamed sincerity. His pain was real. His guilt was real. His hope was real. But could she trust him? If we broke the peace, she said slowly, if we attacked humanity again, what would you do? I would do what I was made to do. His voice was steady now. I would stop you. I would disable your fleets, destroy your ability to wage war. And I would grieve every single life I took. I would carry that weight until I die. So you would still side with humanity. I would side with peace. If humanity attacked you unprovoked, I would try to stop them too. I am not loyal to any government anymore. I am loyal to the idea that people deserve to live without the fear of annihilation. Ilvara turned away and walked back to her window. The suns had fully set now. The stars were coming out, filling the sky with cold white light. You are the most dangerous being I have ever encountered, she said finally. And also, perhaps, the saddest. I am sorry. Stop apologizing. She turned back to face him. Apologies change nothing. Actions change things. You want to prove you are more than a weapon? Then help me prevent the next war. Help me build something that lasts. Doheen stared at her. You are not going to execute me. If I execute you, I start another war with humanity. Besides, she allowed herself a small smile. My daughter would be very angry if I killed her Varith partner. She says you are the only person who gives her a real challenge. For the first time since the attack, something like hope flickered in Do-Yoon's eyes. Thank you, Your Majesty. Do not thank me yet. The court will learn the truth about you soon enough. My people will demand your head. You will need to convince them, not just me. I understand. Good. She gestured toward the door. Now get some sleep. You look terrible, and I need you functional. We have a lot of work to do. Do-Yoon bowed and left. Alone in her chambers, Ilvara poured herself a glass of wine and drank it slowly. She had just made either the wisest decision of her reign or the most foolish one. Only time would tell which. The news spread like fire through Drygrass Dot within a week. Every citizen in the Vellari Dominion knew the truth about the human ambassador. A journalist from the capital's largest news network uncovered the story and broadcast it across 17 star systems. The headline was simple and devastating. Human weapon. In the Queen's palace, the reaction was immediate and furious. Protests erupted on a dozen worlds. Angry crowds gathered outside government buildings, demanding Do-Yoon's execution. Military officers who had lost friends at the Battle of Proxima Station called for renewed war against Earth. Talk shows and news programs devoted hours to debating whether Queen Ilvara had gone insane. On Ethon Prime itself, the situation was even worse. Nobles who had smiled at Do-Yoon during state dinners now refused to be in the same room with him. Servants who had brought him meals whispered about him in frightened tones. Guards who had grown used to his quiet presence now followed him everywhere, hands on their weapons. The Karath rebellion, sensing an opportunity, intensified their attacks across the empire. Their message was simple. The queen who welcomed the monster into her home could not be trusted to protect her people. Through it all, Da-Hyun stayed in his quarters. He did not defend himself. He did not give interviews. He simply waited, watching the chaos unfold through his window. "You should speak," Neelith told him during one of her visits. "You should tell them what you told my mother. They would understand, would they?" Da-Hyun shook his head. "I killed 12,000 of their people. No words can make that acceptable. They have every right to hate me. But you saved us. You saved my sister, my mother. That does not erase what I did before. Actions have consequences, Highness. I knew that when I came here. I accepted it." Neelith wanted to argue, but she could see the resignation in his eyes. He had already made peace with whatever fate awaited him. Then something unexpected happened. Princess Ysara requested to address the Dominion Council. This was unusual. Ysara was the eldest daughter, the heir to the throne, a politician known for her careful neutrality. She never took public positions on controversial matters. She never risked her reputation on uncertain causes, but she had stood in that throne room, surrounded by assassins, watching death approach, and she had seen a human monster save her life. The council chamber was packed when she rose to speak. Every seat was filled with nobles and officials. Cameras broadcast her words to every world in the Dominion. "I was going to die," she began, her voice clear and strong. "The assassins had killed my guards. I had a sword, but I am not a warrior. I had accepted that my life was over. And then Kang Do-yoon came." She paused, letting the name hang in the air. "I know what he is. I have read the reports. I know about the Battle of Proxima Station. I know about the 12,000 who died. I feel that loss as deeply as any of you." Her four eyes swept across the chamber. "But I also know what I saw in the throne room. A man who did not hesitate to risk his life for mine. A man who could have stood aside and let the enemies of the Dominion kill the royal family. He had no reason to save us. We are the people who conquered his species home. We are the enemy he was created to destroy." The chamber was completely silent. "He saved me anyway. He saved my mother. He saved my sister Neelith. Not because he was ordered to. Not because it served human interests. He did it because he believed it was right." She took a breath. What he was made to be matters less than what he chooses to do. And yesterday, he chose to be our protector. From the back of the chamber, Princess Neelith stood. "I would like to speak as well." She walked forward, her robes trailing behind her. She was the youngest, the least politically experienced, but she spoke with a certainty that surprised everyone. "For 6 months, Kang Do-yoon has lived in our palace. I have spent more time with him than anyone else here. I know his routines, his habits, his character. And I can tell you this, he is not a monster." She described the nights they spent playing Verth. She talked about how he memorized every servant's name, how he asked about their families, how he brought medicine to the gardener's sick daughter. She told him about his quiet kindness, his constant guilt, his desperate hope that he could be something other than a weapon. "He walks through our halls like a ghost," she said. "Not because he does not care about us, but because he cares too much. He carries the weight of every life he has ever taken. He punishes himself more severely than we ever could. Is this the behavior of a monster? Or is this the behavior of a man who made terrible choices and is trying to atone for them?" One by one, the other royal daughters spoke. Princess Vela, the scholar, explained what she had learned about the architect program, how the humans had been desperate, how they had sacrificed their own people's humanity to survive Valari aggression. Princess Thesara, the diplomat, argued that executing Da-hyun would destroy the peace treaty and restart a war that neither side could afford. Finally, Queen Ilvara herself addressed the council. "I have ruled this dominion for 300 years, she said. In that time, I have ordered armies to burn cities. I have signed treaties that decided the fate of billions. I have made choices that cost more lives than I can count. By any measure, I am as much a monster as Kang Do-yun." The chamber stirred with surprise. No one had expected the queen to compare herself to the human. "The difference between us is simple. I made my choices from a throne, surrounded by advisors who told me I was right. He made his choices as a soldier, following orders, trapped in a body that had been modified against his will to kill efficiently." She paused. "And when he finally had a choice, a real choice, he chose peace. He asked his government to send him to the people he had harmed most, so he could spend the rest of his life making amends." She stood, her silver form commanding, her 4 eyes sweeping across every face in the chamber. "The humans sent us their guilt, their conscience, their hope for redemption. We would be fools to reject such a gift." The vote was not unanimous. Many council members still wanted Do-hyun executed or at least exiled, but enough of them were moved by the royal family's defense. The motion to condemn him failed. 6 months later, the Treaty of Etham was signed. It was more than a peace agreement. It was a full alliance, the first ever between the Valari Dominion and Earth United Fleet. Trade routes opened. Cultural exchanges began. For the first time in decades, ships from both species could travel freely without fear of attack. Do-hyun stood beside Queen Elvira during the signing ceremony. He wore gray robes now, styled in the Valari fashion, with a small human flag stitched over his heart. He had been given a new title, Voice of the Bridge, a position created specifically for him, serving as a permanent link between the two civilizations. After the ceremony, Elvira found him standing on a balcony overlooking the celebration below. Thousands of Valari and humans mingled in the palace gardens, sharing food and drinks and stories. Children from both species played together, laughing at games they had just invented. "You seem uncomfortable with the attention," Elvira observed, standing beside him. "I am not a hero," he murmured. "I am just a man who did terrible things and is trying to make up for them. Is that not what heroes are?" She placed one of her 4 hands on his shoulder, a gesture of deep respect among her people. "The scales will never balance, Kang Do-hyun. What you took cannot be given back. But perhaps that is not the point. Perhaps the point is simply to keep trying." He looked up at her, and for the first time since arriving on Etham Prime, he smiled. It was small, fragile, uncertain, but it was real. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for believing I could be something better. Thank my daughters. They convinced me." She smiled back. "And stop calling me Your Majesty. We are partners now." "Elvira will do." That night, as the celebration continued below, Do-hyun returned to his quarters and activated his communication implant. He sent a message to Earth, not through official channels, but through the private network that connected all 7 architects.